Hi, my name's Paul Grogan, and in this gaming rules review, I'm going to be telling you what I think about SpaceCorp 2025 to 2300, designed by John Butterfield and published by GMT Games in 2018. Now, this game was one of the two games that was voted on by my Patreon supporters as one of the games that I would review in the month of June 2018. This review is a little late, apologies for that, but here I am. Now, if you want to support me and keep the show going, and help make more videos like this, then please consider supporting me over at patreon.com/gaming rules. And a special thanks to Kim Vikos for your support. Thank you very much, Kim, for all of your support over the months that you've been with me. So anyway, on with the game. This is a game set in space, believe it or not. Now, I'm already going to like this game because of the setting. A lot of people don't know, but I did astrophysics at university. I was a science fiction geek. Well, you probably all worked that out anyway. But I grew up loving astronomy, loving science fiction, reading Isaac Asimov and all sorts of things like that. And this is a game that's realistic space. So this isn't about spaceships flying around shooting each other or anything like that. This is about the exploration initially of the solar system and then progressing out beyond there. You can see from the artwork of the game that it is very much what I class as hard sci-fi. So yeah, so I was always keen on playing a game about the exploration of the solar system. Now, what is the game? Well, it plays over 3 eras. The first era is this, where you are literally exploring the inner solar system. And once the deck runs out, you have a deck of cards, which is kind of the timer. You will then progress to Era 2. Era 2 has a completely new board. So you basically take pretty much everything off this board and you get a second board, which is called, this is the Planeteers. Okay, and you are exploring the outer solar system, and everything that was on the first map is here in the inner solar system. That has a second deck of cards, and once that deck of cards has run out, you progress to Era 3, where you flip over this board, and you are now exploring the galaxies. This is why it's 2025 to 2300, and each era takes place over 80 or 90 years of time. Era 3 has its own big deck, and you're basically exploring the galaxy, and you might find aliens, spoiler. So yeah, it does tell the story of mankind's exploration into space over the 3 eras. Now, one thing that is very cool about the game, let's just get rid of this a minute, is you can just play Era 1 if you want to. Or you can play just Era 2, or you can play just Era 3, or you can say, well, forget 1, we'll start at 2 and we'll play 2 and 3. Or you could just say, we're going to play 1 and 2. The rule book contains rules for you stopping at any point at the end of any era and scoring, and also for starting at any point. Now, you probably don't want to play Era 1 and then stop, unless you are playing it as an introductory game, just to teach people the basic mechanisms of the game to see if they're going to like it. Eras 1 and 2 does feel like a complete game. But I like to play all 3 eras. The playtime is a bit of a problem. Now, this is a long game. This isn't a 8 to 10 hour long game, but this is I would say 3 to 5 hours. Now, it says on the box 1 to 4 hours. Now, 4-player game of this with somebody who is new is going to be about 5 hours. I've played it 1 player, I've played it 3-player twice, and I've played it 4-player 3 times. So for me, it's always generally about the 5 hours with 4 players. Usually comes down to about 3.5 hours for 3 players. Now, one thing that I was puzzled by is I did a solo playthrough of this. So if you want to see me playing through the solo game of this online, you can. And there is a video there on my channel for that. And it took me 3 hours. I was expecting it to take about an hour, and it took 3 hours. So that was a whole day of work gone while I did that. So again, thank you very much to all of my Patreon supporters for making things like that possible. But the solo game took me 3 hours to play. Now, one thing that's puzzling about this game is your turns are fairly quick. The core mechanisms in the game are you choose an action, and then you do the action based on what you've got on your infrastructure board and cards from your hand. And it could be, right, on my turn, I'm going to move 3, I'm going to move 4, 5, I'm going to move from there to there, done. Your turns can be fairly quick, and you can sort of plan ahead. So when it's not your turn, you can work out what you're going to do. Things might change if somebody else goes somewhere that you wanted to go, but otherwise, you can generally plan a lot in advance. So the game seems to flow quickly, but you're like, oh, wait a minute, we're finished, and it's been 5 hours. It's crazy. Now, Era 3 does take longer because you can probably see here slightly that the deck of cards gets more. So Era 3 will be longer, but you are getting to do more in Era 3. Anyway, it's very cool that you can, jump in and start playing whenever you want. The winner of the game is the one with the most profit. Now, profit is tracked on this track here. I'm slightly cheating here because the purple player has a profit counter and I haven't put the other profit counters on. Anyway, you have profit, which is victory points. And there's various ways to get victory points. There are these contracts that you're trying to complete. You can build factories, which you can produce on them. And there's a few other ways of getting points as well. Certain things that you will find on the board, these exploration tiles, some of them are worth points just for finding them. So there's lots of ways of getting profit. Other things that I like about the game, as I say, I do like the core mechanisms within the game. I like the way that it flows. I like the way that the turns can be relatively quick. I like the card-driven part of the game. The downsides of the game, as I say, I've mentioned that it can run a little long. Now, my first game of this, thank you very much, shout out to Graham Charlton for teaching me how to play the game at BakeOn earlier this year, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was the best game that I played at BakeOn. It was everything that I wanted the game to be, and I thought it was fantastic. Then I played it again afterwards, and I thought, yeah, this game is really good, really enjoying this game. Every game I've played since then, my opinion on the game has gone slightly downhill. So I'm glad that I have now played this, I think 5 times in total before doing this review, because my initial review, which I probably spoke about in my video log at the time, is wow, this is the best game I played at BakeOn. And I'm not saying that the game isn't a good game, but now that I've played it a few times, I've started to see some things in the game itself which give it give it some negative points. I would still play this game again. I still think it's a good game, but there is a randomness in the game. And for a long game that is relatively heavy, medium to heavy, I'm not sure, probably medium to heavy, there is randomness in the cards. So you will be picking up cards from here, and sometimes you'll be picking up cards from the top of the deck. I mentioned earlier on, you could have a production strategy. You could go around and build refineries on all of these bases, and you need production cards in order to get them to generate. Is it refineries? Yeah, it's refineries. If you don't get the production cards, you can't do it. You need the cards to be able to do that kind of thing. The biggest random factor, though, is these exploration tiles. And it should be random. It's thematic that you don't know what's there and you're exploring them. And I love the way that some of them have signs of life, or some of them, what's this one? Abundant ores, and you can find all sorts of things in them. And generally speaking, in Era 1, the tiles are all relatively balanced, okay? This one gives you 2 points because it's like it's a natural wonder. You found a volcano, you can take some photos, put them on Instagram. Exotic elements, right, which doesn't give you as many points, but you can build something there. Anyway, these all seem fairly balanced. Then you go into Era 2, and there are some tiles in there that are just horrible. There's one, the pirates, and I've played this game a couple of times now, and I've taken out the pirates because you can find a tile which is like, oh, this is really good. I'll get some immediate points. I can build a base there. It's all good, and it produces, and I get an extra bonus for finding it. Right, great. Or you can draw another tile which is like, right, you're completely screwed. And the people that I've spoken to about this say, oh no, in the grand scheme of things, no, it's fine. If you draw that one tile, you're not completely screwed. Well, I'm sorry, but you draw that one tile, compared to that other one, you're at a massive, massive disadvantage. There's another tile in there, it's either in 2 or 3, which is just horrible. And I personally would go out of my way and say it's bad game design for a game that I think is good. And it's probably thematic, but it's a tile that basically says systems failure, lose 2 points and draw another tile. Okay, so it's thematic. Something's gone wrong. It's a space mission, and I totally get that. But effectively what you're saying, would you play a game where at the start of the game, the rulebook said during setup, pick a random player, that player loses 2 points at the start of the game? No, you wouldn't. Yet that's exactly what this is. At some point in the game, a random player is going to draw the tile, lose 2 points, and then draw a different one. And it's just horrible. I just don't like that at all in a game like this. Now, the counter argument of that is twofold. First of all, people say, 2 points doesn't really matter. And you're right. When your winning score is 120, 130, 2 points doesn't really matter. If it doesn't really matter, why have that tile in the game? The other thing is there is a research tile, not a research tile, one of these progress cards you can buy, which basically means every time you're looking for tiles, you can draw 2 and put 1 back. Yeah, okay, so you can mitigate it, but if you decide not to draw that and you draw that bad tile, again, I'm focusing on it a bit too much. It's a small part of the game, but it's a part of the game that I really didn't like. And you can take those tiles out. We played one game where we took those tiles out and there's still enough tiles for everything in the game. So you can take them out. It's not an official variant, but you can, and it's fine. And it works okay. So yeah, the random elements in a long game, not too keen on that. Let's go on to the components. It's GMT, so it's probably going to be good components, and it is. A lot of the components are standard, you know, cubes, tiles, cards, they're all right, but you can get cards wrong. These cards are not wrong. These cards, good, thick, sturdy, a bit glossy, but that's how they are. They're not going to wear that easily. I haven't got these sleeved. I played it 3 or 4 times, this copy, and I haven't sleeved the cards. So that tells you something about the component quality. Board, good thick board. This is good board, all good. Graphic design, I really like. Now the artwork is subjective. I think this artwork is nice because it's space, it's realistic. That's how it works. It's exactly what space looks like. I was there last Tuesday and that's exactly what it looks like. The graphic design is clean and simple. A lot of people would say, oh, these cards are ugly. You know, look at them. They're really not very nice. But they are clean, they are simple, they work. There's nothing wrong with them at all. All of the information you need on them is there. And there's lots of iconography in the game that's all really clear. So I didn't find that a problem whatsoever. Rulebook wise, the game comes with 2 rulebooks. So the good and the bad thing about this is the rulebooks, and I believe Chad Jensen was involved in it, designer of Dominant Species, and he does really good rulebooks. His name's not in here, but I think he did these rulebooks. These rulebooks are really good. For a complex game like this, these rulebooks are fantastic. Now, there was a slight error, I believe, in the first printing, a couple of little errors. They've been fixed in the online version of the rulebook, so if you go online and get that, it was only some minor things, but really well laid out, lots and lots of examples, really good. Now, the downside is when I came to play the solo game, I had the solo rulebook, and I was expecting to just read, you know how to play this, now let's learn how you play the solo game, what's changed? And it wasn't. This rulebook is exactly the same as that rulebook in terms of size and the way it's all presented, but with the solo rules in there. So in other words, I had to read through this from scratch. And 90% of this was stuff I already knew. It would have been nice to have just a couple of pages of, right, you're playing the solo game, here's what's different in the solo game. Now I've played the solo game, and as I mentioned earlier on, it took me 3 hours. I probably would not play the solo game again. I enjoyed it. It was exciting, it was tense. I think I won in the end, just. But if it was an hour to an hour and a half, I probably would. But it's a 3-hour game, solo play. Yeah, not too keen about that. Right, but otherwise, yeah, rulebook's really good. Oh, the other thing as well, you get these player aids, and you get like 4 of these, and these aren't flimsy bits of paper. These are solid card, and these are really good. There's so much information on these that you need during the game. So yeah, this is a player aid with all of the different actions on, what everything does, all of the different bases, what they all do, depending on what era you build them. Really good. Right, I mean, I haven't mentioned the other components, because when you go to era 2 and era 3, what happens, I'm going to clear this board now and make a complete mess. As I say, pretty much everything clears. You can keep one base, which you put on your player board as a legacy base, and then this board flips over, and we get a whole new board. So this will go off to one side, and then we'll get the new board that will go there, so the game takes up more space. And this is where you have these progress cards. So these will be populated all over here, and you've got a genetics cube and a research cube, is it? No, it's not a research cube, it's something else cube, revelation cube. And when one of those goes all the way around, you get one of these cards. These are like super technology things that basically give you a bonus for the whole game. They're really cool. That's really cool. Loads and loads of cool stuff about the game that I really like. Just those couple of negative points that kind of, it's like next time I play the game, I'm probably going to remove those bad tiles. Can't do anything about the card draw. That's not that much of a problem to me. It was the random exploration that I found enough of a problem. Oh, I didn't mention the colonies. Yeah, when you get to era 3, basically the whole thing you're trying to do is you're trying to establish colonies. So let's put this out here. And yeah, one thing you're trying to do is basically you will be exploring these star systems, you'll be building bases, and then you will be establishing these colonies. That's the ultimate aim of the game, is to establish these colonies, because the more colonies that you build at the end of the game, establish, then the more points you're going to get. Now, scalability. As I mentioned, I've played this 1 player, I've played it 3 player, and I've played it 4 player. The deck of cards is exactly the same. So, this seems a bit odd. This is the deck of cards for Era 3. If you're playing the solo game, you go through this deck of cards. If you're playing the 4-player game, you go through this deck of cards. Now, what that means is you are going to get to do less actions in a 4-player game than you would in a 3-player game than you would in a 2-player game. I've played this game at 1, 3 and 4 players, and that doesn't... The games still seem to work, but you will get a lot less actions. Now, one thing that I think doesn't work scalability-wise is this contract board. This contract board is two-sided. So this is the side for 3 and 4 players, and the other side is for 1 to 2 players. And one of the contracts is, in Era 3, bases in 5 regions. In a 4-player game, it is practically impossible to get bases in 5 regions because there's 4 players on the board and there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's only 14. So that's very, very difficult. I'm surprised, and this is nitpicking here, I'm surprised this isn't 4 regions in a 4-player game. It's like just a couple of these don't seem to scale well based on the number of players in the game. Or maybe it's just that one, but that kind of highlighted it to me. Right, is there anything else? Nope, I've checked my list and I think that's pretty much everything. So it's a game I like. The only downsides, as I say, the bit of randomness in the game and the length. Other than that, lots to like about the game. Would I play it again? Yes. Would I want to take out the nasty tiles? Yes, I probably would. I'm afraid. They left a bad taste in my mouth, and I played it with a couple of other people that almost flipped the table when those cards came out. Even though it didn't affect them, it affected me. They were like, well, that tile is just stupid and shouldn't be in this game. Anyway, I've focused too much on that, and I've mentioned it too many times. SpaceCorp 2025 to 2300. I've done 2 playthrough videos. I've done a multiplayer playthrough video, which is about 3 hours long. Go and check that out if you want to see us playing through a 3-player game. And I've done a solo playthrough as well. Thank you very much again to all of my Patreon supporters that make these videos possible. And I will join me next time for the next installment of a gaming rules review video, whatever that's going to be. Who knows? Until next time, take care and thanks for watching. Gaming Rules is proudly sponsored by Game Toppers, upgrading your gaming experience. Visit GameToppersLLC.com.